Good to see everybody. A lot of stuff here recently with polls coming out and preseason expectations, schedule release. Excited to get it started. So take your questions, see what you want to talk about.
Paul, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Let's kick off with the coaches poll out today. How did you see that, and maybe the All SEC stuff? What were your thoughts there?
I don't know what I did to make everybody mad at us to pick us so high, but I will beg forgiveness in the future meetings. I just tweeted a few minutes ago. We know it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, like for buys in the tournament or automatic bids or any of that stuff. But I also don't think that it doesn't mean nothing. It means something, and it means that we've got expectations placed on us by people that follow the sport, people that follow our league, the coaches that are in it, that have looked at the schedule and looked at who everybody plays twice and where you play everybody and who you've got coming back and all that. So as long as they're doing polls, I'd rather be picked toward the top. I think we all joked back in the beginning about the league being divided into the North and the South. So after a little bit of time in the South and a little bit of time in the Central there, I think being in the top four is a good thing for our kids. As far as the all-league stuff goes, man, that's a hard team to make. There are some really good players. I got the ballot, and we were at 16 picks, so there's still some pretty good players on this list. I do think the SEC is really, really deep, maybe as deep as we've been. I think you've seen it in the way that the APs rank people, and the coaches poll will come out on Thursday. Anytime you've got the team picked at the top and a lot of people picked in the top 15, then you know that you've got good players who equal a good preseason all-conference team and high picks, high expectations for the league as well.
Well, does the fact that Dungy was first team and Slocum second team, what is that? I mean, what are your thoughts there? I mean, that's
yeah, that they've earned that. Chelsea through her play, obviously in our league, night in, night out, now for 3 years, to be recognized like that by those coaches. It means it's not a one-game thing or a two-game thing or a one-year thing. It's an overall thing. Then I think Slocum, just with her play nationally, she's been all-conference in the ACC. She's been all-conference twice in the Pac-12. I think that shows our coaches are very knowledgeable of the basketball across the country, in that she has a chance to impact. And she has. If you would have watched preseason practice, you would have picked her there too. So it means, too, when you have two players out of the 16 that people are expecting that, talents there to be able to compete night in and night out. And we know that. We've been in practice, and we know that competition is really tough right now.
Paul, we'll come back to you. Seth, you got anything?
Yeah, for sure. Coach, when you look at the progression of the program, you came in and you've been pretty upfront with saying that you had, idea where you wanted to be in each year. Where do you want to be entering year 4?
Well, we expect to win everything now. It's a comfortable spot to be. I didn't think it was fair to come in year 1 talking about winning conference championships and winning, going to the NCAA tournament when that hadn't been happening, and that wasn't the expectation. Likewise, now that we're there, let's win everything. Let's win every game we play. Results are okay to talk about. We're okay to get into that results-driven type thing. Still focus on what it takes to get there, but I think our locker room expects to beat Baylor on the December 6th. We're playing at Florida Gulf Coast. That's the place that not many Power Fives go to play. They're on their home floor. I looked at the math. I did the math yesterday. We've got 7 games against teams that are going to have a national championship banner, and 16 who've been in the NCAA tournament the last 3 years. And that's what our kids were promised if they would come. We were selling them this vision of, I know you've got all these other schools that are doing it right now, but if you'll come here, we'll eventually do it before you leave. So it gives evidence that we're not just running our lips. It's not a lot of not a lot of lip service. We're going to talk about it, doing it, and then go out and do it. after the fact. So I think it just speaks to our kids embracing awareness of where we are and where we were, and now where we got the potential to go.
How much easier does it make it, the fact that it isn't just lip service anymore?
A lot easier. Yeah, we've got, you got recruits calling you instead of having to call recruits. You've got transfers that we're turning down instead of begging. It makes scheduling a lot harder. I mentioned Coach Schaefer, and I mention him every chance I get, but the job he's done to put that schedule together, it's hard because, A, we've got people that, A, don't want to play because we do have a good team, B, COVID issues, and C, all those restrictions. So the uncertainty. But it does make things easier as far as those areas. It makes games harder. We're no longer, the hunter mentality. I go back to the Pawpaw Neighbors line of it. Things change when the deer has the gun instead of the other way around. And it makes it harder in that. But that's the challenge that these kids came for. And I think we'd be doing them a disservice if we put together a schedule that wasn't challenging and didn't give them the opportunity to play against the best ones before SEC play starts.
Tyler, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering. So, I think 4 years ago now, when we first kind of talked to you, and someone asked you that question, "What's the goal?" And I think what you said was the goal is to not finish last in the SEC.
Yeah.
So, I just you talk about getting faith from the kids and from girls you're recruiting and whatnot, but just from within yourself. I mean, what did it take? How much confidence did you have at that point that here 4 years later you'd be saying, "Oh, now the goal is to win everything"?
Not very much. I didn't have a lot of confidence. I had a lot of belief, a lot of trust, but not much confidence. But once things started to flow together, once Chelsea came and Amber came and Slocum came and Taylor did what she did and Jalen stayed. I always go back to that first meeting. The right kids stayed in that first meeting. That very first day when some people had the opportunity to go and the right kids stayed. And that got it all started. And once I saw that, my confidence did grow, but there wasn't a lot at the very beginning. So to be here now helps me make decisions in the future. You know what I'm saying? We made these in the past based on what we knew, what we believed, what we thought. Now we can say, okay, well, that worked. Let's try this. And I can try those things with some confidence, like the schedule. Coach Schaefer made me sign a form that said, you were fully aware when you agreed to this game what we were doing. Because he doesn't want me coming back and looking at him like, who put this schedule together? It gives you confidence to move forward. And it gives you confidence to try some things to make that next jump up. Again, we're not there. We're in the talk, but until we now back that up with a Sweet 16 run, an Elite 8 run, get a magical draw and play whatever tournament they give us a chance to play in. That's the next thing that we have to do. But I do think we have confidence in that part of it. I wouldn't tell you I had a lot of self-confidence, but I've got confidence in that team and the staff down the hall. So, and now confidence that we have done some things and there's more we can do.
And then, obviously we know Chelsea and Destiny and Amber and all of them, what we're kind of expecting. Anyone who you think is going to surprise us this year, media, fans?
Michaela Daniels always gets forgotten about. I mean, she got forgotten about last year by our lead coaches on the all-freshman team because I think people didn't realize she played like a freshman. But that kid has been our most consistent player in the preseason. She just does not get herself in trouble. Her teams win. She goes about it. I don't like to compare kids to anybody because they're all unique. And she's met this guy, but she doesn't remember him playing. But she's Lee Mayberry for Razorback fans. She is that just always with a smile, always goes about her, but she's a killer. And I think that's the thing that she has made improvement. She had a great freshman year. Everybody always worries about the sophomore year, that sophomore slump, but she's come back even better than ever. Mason coming back, gives us a stability. And then Marquisha Davis will kind of be that, like Roe did last year. You know how Roe went from freshman to that sophomore? Marquisha Davis has a chance to do that same thing for us. So seeing the local kid that last year gained a lot of experience in practice and game after the games and in some games. But I think there's going to be some times when you kind of look up at your computer screen in some wow moments, because she does it to us in practice every now and then. But Michaela Q certainly jump out when it comes to, maybe not being talked about as much as some of the others.
Brett, you have anything?
Mike, you intrigued me with the talk about destiny with getting some all-conference honors in the ACC and Pac-12. Has anybody ever received all-conference honors in 3 different conferences? Normally when you're leaving because you're not playing enough. Could that be a unique stat or note?
We haven't found any yet. Mario's got more homework to do now, but I have not found any, and I've looked. No, to my knowledge, there's not been. And it does take a unique circumstance and a unique setting, but she's a unique kid. So I cannot think of any off the top of my head that's happened for, Brett.
One more thing on Amber not being named in the top couple of teams. Is she the kid where that's a chip on her shoulder right now? Does she care? We didn't talk about it yet. I think it might motivate her a little bit, but she understands that the way the preseason stuff works. I don't think anybody had 3. South Carolina didn't even have 3, did they, Mario? And they're the number 1 team in the country. Until we start making our ballots public, there's always going to be a little gamesmanship in some of that voting. I can tell you this: if we were putting the whole pool of candidates together on available picks, Amber's going in the first round. So her value might not be as valued by some people as it is for us. But she's a kid that has always just kind of gone about doing her thing. She was always, your shot's funny. You got to change your shot. Not so much. She won the McDonald's All-American 3-point shootout. Hey, you're too slow. Not too slow to be a McDonald's All-American. Hey, you can't. She's been told that a bunch. So I know that kid thrives off having her teammates' trust. And if you've ever been in one of our practices, when she turns down a shot, it's comical. People yell and scream at her to shoot the ball. So I would, and I know she's this way. She would rather have that than a bunch of awards that, might have some momentary value. She would rather have that day-to-day confidence from her teammates and her coaches.
Russell, you have anything?
Coach, just your thoughts on the schedule that Todd was able to put together, and obviously the Baylor game sticks out to a lot of people.
Yeah, sure. They're going to be going down as still defending national champions, I guess. Preseason top 5 in all the polls, dominant in their league. I think they've won their league championship 15 or 16 straight times. A standard bearer. Being able to get that game here, another one of those little signs of evidence that things going in the right direction. But it goes back. I've always been told if you have a good team, you need to put together a great schedule to be a great team. If you have a good team and you put together a crappy schedule, you never even have a chance to be a good team. And I've never cared about win-loss record. I really haven't. I don't have any desire to have X number of wins. It's always, how do we play in March? Can we beat the good teams in March? And so far we've been able to do that. And I don't think you can get there, and especially in this abbreviated preseason. I look around at the schedules that are being released, and I know there are COVID issues, but I still think there are some people that probably opted out of some competition games because there's not as many wins available if you do that. But when you don't care about it, it doesn't matter. You get the best people you can play. That's why we're going to UALR. We're going to play in Stevens. We could have canceled that game. We could have said, COVID. We're not going to play in the big arena. We'll move it. But we didn't. Hey, Florida Gulf Coast. We got to play them on their home floor now rather than a neutral site. We could have jumped out of that. But it was never our mentality. There were opportunities to play an easier schedule, but we tried to get the hardest one we could find. And I'm ready. We're ready for it. As far as anxious wise, I don't know if we've got the game plan in to be able to play 4 games in 5 days against the people we're getting ready to play against, but find out. These kids have waited too long to play. This is the longest any of them have ever been without competition. Ever. Whether it was junior high to high school or summer to what, this is the longest they've gone without competing with somebody in another uniform. And we didn't want to wait any longer that's why we're playing so early on that Wednesday. We're not going to wait any longer than we have to. And then 4 games in 5 days and recover and come back and then be able to play the in-state schools and in-system school and UAPB, keep the Little Rock game, add UCA. We tried to go ahead and get Arkansas State started this year as well, but his schedule was full because they added league games. So really happy with how it turned out, and I hope that we get a chance to play every single one of them on there.
Mike,
Jordan, do you have anything?
on the trajectory,
sorry, Brett.
would everybody wants the tournament to take place? Would you be disappointed if the NCAA tournament went to one site? Because we talk about trajectory, you would have been kind of on pace to maybe host a couple of rounds.
Yeah, no, if we have anything, disappointment won't be the word. You'll look back and talk about it 20 years from now, but if we have anything that's got tournament, postseason attached to it, we'll be excited. I anticipate we're headed in that direction. If that's the direction the men are going, I think it's probably safety-wise and gives us the best chance to play. So, no, there wouldn't be any disappointment. It would be kind of excitement maybe a little bit. I've always kind of liked that Survivor Series mentality. I've been behind Debbie Antonelli's plan to go to Vegas for a long time. Get there and, man, want to stay. Go someplace where you want to stay, I know that when we lost in the Final Four in 2016, our kids want to go home that night, get back home. I don't think that would be the case at one of those events. So it could have some excitement to it. We'd love to be a part of anything that ends up happening to kind of, wash away last year's memories of what could have been.
Jordan, go ahead.
Being a week out or so from the first game, what do you want your team to do really well? What do you think that they can be really successful at, and maybe areas of concern as well?
Be good in transition defense, because there's going to be a lot of turnovers and a lot of missed shots. So if we can be really good in transition defense and transition offense, that's a good place to start. That's the places we do a lot. My concern right now, and I've been having individual meetings all morning, is we haven't had a chance to scrimmage. We haven't had a closed-door scrimmage. We haven't had an exhibition game. We haven't had anything. We're going to do a red-white against ourselves, but that really doesn't put 5 people on the floor at once. And then who's your first guard sub? And who's your first forward sub? And who doesn't play? We haven't had to have that yet. Normally on November the 17th, you've already had that plus 2 or 3 games. So we're not going to have that preseason. And I've really studied football. I've talked to Colby in soccer. I've talked to Jason in volleyball. Everybody that's competed in a team sport. You can't talk to Coach Harder and Coach Buckman because they win national championships. They're operating with a different game preparation than the rest of us. They're making sure the plane gets there on time. Okay? So I've been talking to those guys about that, and that was something they faced. So I'm concerned that I don't have the expertise to handle maybe not having that have happened yet. And it's going to happen on Wednesday. And then we get on a plane, and then we play 3 more games in the next 4 days. So it's going to happen fast. And I don't have any expertise, and I can't call Coach Blair and use his 77 years of college coaching experience because he doesn't know either. There's nobody that knows to tell each other, hey, try this. We're all in uncharted waters for each other. So I worry about that. When you talk about what am I worried about, I'm worried that I'm not equipped with the ability to be able to handle something that none of us have ever had to do. So that's made for a few sleepless nights. Even though Bowen is sleeping 13 hours a night still, it ain't his fault. I cannot blame the little guy for that. It's me and that. So it's a good question. And as long as we're good in transition offense and defense, I think the game will take care of itself. But I'm just worried about making sure our kids have mentally handled all this and are ready to transition back into competition. I know physically they are. Strength and conditioning have done a great job. Our medical staff, we've been tested more than ever in the history of since any of us have been alive. And now can we go mentally prepare and get back into competition mode?
Whoever's behind the pig trail camera, do you have a question? Kyle, you have a question? All right. Does anyone have any follow-ups for Coach?
Hey, Coach, can you talk a little bit about your signing class there, starting with Jersey?
Sure, we can start with her because she's the closest geographically.
Right.
Obviously, that's the kid who has escaped us in the past. It's the kid that's ended up at UConn or Rutgers or Tennessee or take your pick. So to be able to be good enough at the right time, she was still buying into a vision a little bit, when she committed. But I think seeing the way everything has gone only solidified that decision for her to stay home. She's the type of kid that avalanches things. In the future classes, they've all seen her. They all know her. They all talk about her. Everybody in the class that I'll talk about now had already committed prior to Jersey, though. They wanted to be Razorbacks. They were not influenced by her decision. But obviously Jersey with her, there's nobody like this kid. There's been nobody in men's or women's basketball that's gone through the growth spurt that she went through and stayed the same position. Okay, there's been a lot of people that have grown, but they changed positions. Anthony Davis went from point guard to forward. Durant went from point guard to a forward. Jersey has grown and stayed the same position. And in our game, it's really literally unheard of. So the uniqueness to her, there's no comparison of what her potential is. And when you meet her and you talk to her, she's even a better kid. And I know that gets said a lot. But this is a case of a kid that we were in the right place. Arkansas gets one about every 10 years. I mean, about every 10 years, you get that kid that comes along that everybody in the country wanted. And they can't say they didn't, because I sat right next to him in Northside's gym, night in and night out. Baylor, UConn, Louisville, Notre Dame, they were all there. Oregon State, everybody in the top 10 wanted this kid. So for her to say yes to us, I don't think enough can be said or written about it. Then I'll go in the reverse order. The first player to commit was Emory Ellis out of Van Nuys, Oklahoma. Mario did a great job releasing our signing stories, and I think y'all probably saw those. She was the kid that we just kind of randomly heard a rumor about and turned out to be even better than we thought. Lacey Goldwire had heard about her, went down and saw her because of a college classmate told him about her. And lo and behold, we find out, she goes, well, Arkansas is kind of my dream school. You don't hear that a lot. And I'm from Arkansas. You know what I'm saying? You don't hear that a bunch. And you find out she has a Razorback red Mustang. And then you see her play. But she's probably the kid that people have seen the least of, because Van Nuys is not the biggest classification. She did not play on the summer circuit. She broke her wrist 3 minutes into the summer season one year. The next year she chose to go to church camp, and then the next year she'd committed to us. So she's never played. I think when people see her, you see a 6'3" kid that shoots threes, runs the floor, blocks shots. She's a triple-double in high school with block shots. She blocked 22 shots in the game I went and watched last year. I did the stats. But she could be a double-double type kid for us. Then the next player to commit in order was Samara Spencer out of Florida. Another one that was because of relationships that we had with her summer league grassroots program. We don't really, you don't really target Florida as an area to really hit, because there's so many other SEC schools between here and there, and ACC schools, and all those schools recruit Florida. But we have enough contacts down there, and they always know that if there is somebody that they feel might be looking to get out of the area, that's who they call us about. And that's what happened in this case. Their summer league coach reached out to Coach Schaefer and I. We've known them for 20 years. We've never signed one of their players in 20 years. Any place we've ever been, neither of us have ever signed one of their players. But they said, hey, Coach, this is your type of kid. And we trust them. We believe them. They know what we look like. And we hit it off. Her mom brought her up here for a football game last year on an unofficial visit, and she committed about 2 weeks later. Slasher out on the wing, SEC body, SEC caliber athlete that shoots it, and she's rare. Then Ashlyn Sage out of Weatherford, Oklahoma, played on the same summer league team with Riley Langerman and Emory, and we had kept hearing her name in the signing story. It was my high school teammate at Greenwood High School back in 87. He's a preacher out in that area, and he kept hearing about this kid, and he said, you might want to keep an eye out for her. And I randomly stumbled across her name at a game watching Riley play. At the time, she was just spindly, 6'1", played her guts out, wing player. And now she's a 6'3" shooter with unlimited range with her added size and strength. She's a good rebounder. She can guard multiple positions and can play multiple positions for us. So the 4 in that class, and then the unfortunate injury to Alana Eaton pushes her back into that freshman class. But that class of 21, pretty solid, pretty good group. Really going to fill a need for, the potential loss of some of our seniors. There's always a chance that those kids are staying now. Our recruiting board looks like a jigsaw puzzle up there because there are a lot of moving pieces under what could be with all that. But all 4 of those kids knew that was the potential, and they still wanted to be Razorbacks. And I think at the end of the day, that was the most important part of it.
Hey, my last thing
Kyle, I
here.
see you got
I had one other thing. I'll bow out.
Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
Mike, you mentioned, I think to me last year, that you felt like your team was ahead of schedule. Back then. Are you on schedule now? Where do you think your team is in your head?
I'm going to keep going with ahead of,
okay.
Just maybe because it makes me sound better than I really am. I don't know, but I hope for people's sake that in all sports, that if you come somewhere where you're being picked last, that you don't have to be being picked 4th in year 4. That takes a lot. There's just a lot of things got to fall right for you. So I think we're still ahead. I do think not having known what would have happened last year. If we'd gone to the Sweet 16 last year, like I think we could have with the right draw, I think that would have been the answer. Yeah, we're way ahead. I wouldn't have said Sweet 16 for a program that's not been to one since going to the SEC, except Coach Blair's run in 98. So I think we're still ahead. I think this year is a pivotal year to staying ahead, but certainly on schedule at the very least. I don't think anybody would lose that argument if you went with on schedule. But I'm going to keep pressing I'm going to try to keep the narrative going on ahead schedule if it's all right.
All right, we'll do one more if anyone has one last question for Coach.
Hey, can you hear me now? I was having some mic issues earlier.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yep, you're good,
Hey,
Kyle.
sorry about that. Hey, I just want to ask you specifically about those in-state games, Coach.
Yeah.
You know better than anybody, there's some significance to seeing, UCA and then at Little Rock and UAPB.
Yeah. It goes back to when the board allowed and Hunter allowed us to do it. It was a no-brainer for me. I've again, growing up in this state, I always wondered why we didn't. And I've got a Frank Broyles autographed helmet, autographed book, autographed picture. I'm a Broyles guy, but I never really understood why that was that big of a deal. So to be able to be a part of the first teams that are going to play all of them in the same year and, at their places. And I wouldn't do it if those people – like if Joe Foley wasn't at Little Rock, I probably wouldn't have done it. But I've got too much respect for Foley and what he's done there and their AD. Same thing with Don and Sandra and Matt at Arkansas State. It's just good for our game. And I felt like not that it wouldn't have happened and eventually, but because they're there, it was the right thing to do for our game. And then you throw COVID in there, and it certainly was able to move it up a year. Be able to reach out to Don because they were losing games at UAPB and Sandra had lost games there. Just to be able to help each other. They helped us. We were helping them. I think it's great for our kids in our state to know that there's lots of different options. There's lots of different opportunities to get your college paid for and play basketball. And, you know, if we can be a little help in exposing that to everybody, then I think we've done what we're supposed to do. Again,
All right, everybody.
I'm
That'll
not
wrap
so
us
sure
up.
after we play at Stevens Arena, I may have a different attitude. But for now, we're going to be positive.